All right, all right, all right. Good morning, or any time that you see this video, this call will turn into a video. Hi, my name is Jabani. Some call me Dr. Jabani. Um, with she, they pronouns. In the chat, if you can introduce yourself and build community there. And if you see me look in different ways, I had a little technical difficulty in my camera. So I'm trying to look as directly on as possible, but so glad that you're here. I'm a Kentucky-based visual artist and the director of the Women's Center at U of L. This video will provide you with information about our new exciting project called Grandmother Power. Before we start, we will bring in the ancestors into this conversation for gratitude. So, where the University of Louisville stands, we gratefully acknowledge that this land in which we work, learn, discover, and connect is the territory of the Cherokee East, Osage, Mayimaki. And again, forgive me, ancestors, if I'm mispronouncing the names, Shawnee, Kaskaskia, Hopewell culture and Adena culture, Native and Indigenous peoples, as well as those communities who make their home here today. We are grateful for you, for them, for all, for the generations of stewardship, strength, and resilience in protecting this land. And we are reimagining for healthy Indigenous futures on this site and more. All right, so let's get into the purpose after bringing in our ancestors. So the purpose of Grandmother's Power Oral History Project, which will be housed on YouTube as well in the U of L libraries. It will feature multicultural stories between grandmothers and their grandchildren based in Kentucky. These conversations will amplify the power of intergenerational connections, cultural knowledge, and reflection about gender equity issues across time with project participants. We hope that event participants, including students, will be able to identify the importance of storytelling and community leadership, healthy relationship building as a critical part of family wellness and cultural transmission. So we hope all those parts could be in the stew to help us really uplift these stories and really look at what they mean to all of us. The Oral History Project will provide an opportunity for students, staff, and faculty and community members to look at all the connections we can have through critical dialogue with archival processes that participants will learn about. So we also would like to have a special shout out to the event program lead, Miss Phyllis Webb, the Grandmother Power. She will speak more later in today's program. But Grandmother's Power Oral History Project is definitely her brainchild, and it connects to her 20 plus years of experience at U of L in cultural programming. So why grandmothers? Why are we doing this? What is this all about? And what is the importance? So we can go to the data. The census, the US Census, and the National Library of Medicine shared that the United States has approximately 67 million adults who are grandparents with the average grandparent age of 67 years old, while a quarter of midlife adults 40 to 64 are grandparents. About 70% of adults 65 and older are grandparents. So looking at Kentucky, where Louisville is the home to some 615,000 residents, 15% of whom are over 60. The area's older population is expected to increase by as much as 40%. by 2050. Let's get that in our head. 40% by 2050, and that is coming from the American Association of Retired Persons from 2022. So throughout history and across the world, grandmothers have played an instrumental role in community and family life through their strength, their wisdom, their resourcefulness, their resiliency to make positive difference in our neighborhoods and in the lives of their grandchildren. And there's emerging studies about the impact of the roles of grandmothers and aging guardians in healthy and disinvested neighborhoods. So there's bigger ways of you can look at the story, but there's so many parts to those stories that speak to the personal and the political. There are many innovative programs and initiatives and projects in Louisville, Kentucky, and beyond that seeks to support, nurture, and learn more about this special population of aging adults. We know this project can definitely support and advance those strategic pillars in our collective work across the city, the region, and the nation, along with the amazing work at the University of Louisville Culture and Equity Center and Office for Institutional Equity when we're looking at strategic pillars of research and scholarship and leadership support and development. I can speak for myself and what I've heard others say as grandchildren. I could say I cherish the memories and the wisdom and the deep reflection about pain and sorrow. There's some intergenerational trauma in there too, and life experiences of our grandmothers, whether they're no longer here or they're currently in our lives, as precious as we all are. Speaking directly to U of L students, staff, faculty, and community members near and far, we would love for you to be a part of this project, and that's what the kickoff and this video is about, so that others know your history, our present, and we can plan for our future. So I will send this off to Ms. Phyllis again. This is her brainchild that we are all excited to come together and co-create in this project. Ms. Phyllis, we can't hear you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry about the technical difficulty there. We all have a story to tell, and this Grandmother Power Oral History Project is one project that I deeply have an interest in, and we're trying to tell some stories about our grandmothers and us growing up with our grandmothers. The Oral History Project started with some panel discussions that we had in fall of 2022 and spring of 2023, last academic year, with grandmothers from the U of L campus community talking about their grandchildren, about the social justice issues of the day. And the grandparents, they talked to their grandchildren and asked them about what are some of the things that they dealt with when it came to social justice. And they talked to their grandchildren about those, and we came up with some different ideas from that collective thoughts. So the stories are from a diverse group of women with differences as well as commonalities about beliefs and families, communities, education and integrity, resistance and change, and future leaders. Some of the sessions, the questions that we're going to be posing for upcoming sessions are: what thoughts, dreams, or choices did my grandmother make when she was my age? How has the world changed in her lifetime? And what can I learn from her? We all have a story to tell, and we have rich testimonies of courage and insight to share with students on their journey in school and in their lives as they matriculate on their way to graduation. The aim of this project is for rich voices of history talk about equity issues and provide wisdom, food for thought to future students and generations to come. The interviews would be a series of tapings with elders and within cross lines of class, race, faith, and different cultural backgrounds. The tapings are planned for this summer 2024, with various air dates in the fall and spring. Okay, that's what I have right now.
All right. So we have different so you'll see throughout the year when we upload, and we'll tell you more about the process and as we keep going. But as I think about my grandmother, just to bring it down down to light, down to the ground of who was that person in my life. So my grandmother, who she passed in January of 2021, she was a light, she was a joy, um, sometimes harsh in her feedback. She could curse you out, and then she'll give you candy before you leave the house. So she was not perfect, which we are not perfect, but beautiful at the same time. She was raised in Memphis, Tennessee, and she later moved to New York City, like many Black folks, to find a better life compared to some of the terrorism and different things that were happening in the South. Um, Years later, after retirement, she moved back to Kentucky. And so I had the pleasure as a child just eating at her kitchen table, hearing the family gossip and listening to things that were happening at her church and her daily life and what happened when she put the trash away in her apartment complex. Her last words, thinking of her last words, was, "It's gonna be all right." Um, and this is before she passed. She would say this a lot when she was more coherent. Just love each other. Just love each other, Giovanni. Just love each other. So I was like, okay, okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that message. So that is my grandmother, and just cherishing her memories and her complexity of who she is.
Okay, I'm going to start off by saying about my grandmother. I was going to talk a little bit about my aunt, who I stayed with a lot when I was growing up as a child. And she passed along a lot of wisdom to me during that time period. And I always thought of my elders with the wisdom they had and used to listen to all their stories as I was growing up as a child. And I was much closer to my mother's side of the family. And I spent greater deal of time with my aunt, like I mentioned, which was my mom's sister, where I grew up in the country. As they say, plenty of fresh air and land. And both my parents had to work, and we as children could not stay by ourselves. So I spent a lot of time with my aunt. I never met my grandmother, my mother's mother. She passed away before I was born. But from what I learned from my mother, my grandmother was a religious, God fearing woman of God and had a strong belief in family. It was 8 children in that family, 4 boys and 4 girls. Thus, my mom had 7 brothers and sisters. All are passed now, and my mom is the only survivor. She's age 80, 92 now. She'll be 93 in July. My grandfather was married once before, and there were 2 sons from that marriage. I plan to do some more research and find out a little bit more about that side of the family. My grandfather was the opposite of my grandmother. He was more of what they call a hellraiser, and she was the quiet, gentle, mild one. And a couple of my cousins have been sharing with me some stories over the years about my grandparents on my mom's side of the family. And I hope to encompass some of that material in a book that I plan to write eventually. I started on a book many years ago. Hopefully, I'll be able to finish it by next year. That's all I have about my grandmother. I wish I had had a chance to have met her, but I didn't.
Good morning. I'm Jamaica Jones. I'm a program coordinator here in the Women's Center. I actually want to highlight a couple of folks. So, Hideko Yumi Lenzo Tamaki was my mother's mother, my grandmother, who unfortunately passed away when my mother was still in high school. So, I never obviously was able to meet her. Um, And so because of that, my Japanese culture, a lot of it is very unfamiliar to me. And so I'm really looking forward to using this project to, of course, help my mother learn and discover things about her, but also give her an opportunity to share memories about her. But even talking with my aunt to build a better relationship with her and learn more about my grandmother who was born in Okinawa, Japan. My grandmother on my dad's side, Vanetta Jones, she's still with us. And it was actually a social work class in graduate school. I interviewed my grandfather, but there was things I ended up learning about her. So I'm also wanting to be able to give her the platform because she had said nobody asked her those questions about her life. And so I want to make sure that's documented. But I really, really, my great grandmother, Miss Lottie Davis, she'll be 107 in December in Canton, Mississippi. And so I tried a couple years ago to go down there and actually do an oral history with her before I knew what an oral history was. And of course, when you get to the ages of wisdom, sometimes health may not always be on your side for those days. So I'm hoping to go down to Mississippi and document those things. Because again, even when I was there in the brief time, there were things that I was asking her that apparently nobody was asking or collecting those stories. And so for me, it's just really important for this project to collect and gather these stories, but also give people the platform that may not have these opportunities to share their stories. Um, some people may not have pictures or anything of their grandparents. So just to have a piece of something of them to still be in existence, even after we pass. And so I know you're all probably wondering the big question, what is this even the process going to be? So if you are interested in, so this could be as a grandmother yourself, you could participate to be interviewed by Women's Center staff, or if you are a grandchild like myself, I plan to interview my own grandparents or great grandparent as well. On our website, there is a link to sign up, and then afterwards, we'll send out an email to everybody who signed up or was interested as well. You'll schedule an interview and sign consent forms. Pretty simple, straight to the point. And then, of course, the interview itself. We ask that you try to schedule at least 2 hours of time. That way, one, we are able to have, no interruptions. But the interview itself should be about an hour. And then, of course, we'll be uploading those with permission on our YouTube page throughout the year to be able to watch these interviews. And so where they will be held, we are working with the Digital Media Suite here in the library and the Oral History Project Department, but in-person interviews will be held in the Digital Media Suite here on campus. While the video quality may not be as well as what it would be in the Digital Media Suite, for those that may be not able to come on campus or connected to our community that may not be physically here in Louisville, there'll be an option as well virtually on Teams. And so questions that will be asked will be provided to you in advance. And of course, depending on how the interview goes, additional questions may be asked during the interview that's not given before. And again, plan 2 hours your time. This includes travel, but the interview itself should be no longer than an hour. And so if you are not familiar with the Digital Media Suite here on U of L's Belknap campus in the library, we have our camera studio and audio studio for those that may be more interested in just doing it via audio. But we're going to get the full perspective and picture. And so I do have a QR code if you're like, I'm gung-ho ready to sign up and participate. And again, this will be sent out, but we are also asking for folks to submit photos for a social media campaign. That will be shared in our monthly newsletter and in our Instagram page. People that may not want to participate in the Oral History Project itself, but as a way to honor our grandmothers. And you can submit photos for yourself if you're a grandmother to be included. And so and of course, any questions, please put in the chat and we'll be on here for a minute. But I'm going to pass it over to my colleagues we've been doing the talking. Now we want to hear from you all.
So on the call, if there's other, what may come up at some point of this call is thinking about the wisdom from your grandmothers in your life. So if anybody feels comfortable just sharing who your grandmother is and how they have impacted your life. And again, a reason if you're catching this later for me looking, my camera is going a different direction. So bear with me on the technical part. But if anybody feels comfortable thinking about what does your grandmother, if you knew her, and that's the assumption of pronouns as well, how they might have thought of themselves. Because there's so much more. So we may come back, and these are some of the questions that we'll have. So we definitely can, so this gives you an example of the questions. We can go on to showing the amazing resources that exist, thinking about our grandmothers and the aging population. So if Jimmy, if you can go to the next slide. All right. So there are so many resources in Louisville, Kentucky, as well as across the region and internationally as we think about the aging population and the amazing talents that people who are 60 and over, all the talents that they have from years of living, of working, of just being. So as we think of our grandmothers as individuals, we're also thinking larger about their stories and what they represent and the communities that are here to support. So if you could take a moment, and again, later this video will be posted. And also for those who are, you can feel free to chat and put things in the chat about things you remember about your grandmother, wisdom that you remember your grandmother, if you don't feel comfortable saying it on the video, but just something that reminds you of your grandmother. And we would definitely honor. But in going to, there's so many people to thank for this project. We would like to thank Heather Fox and her team. So Jamika, if you can go to the next slide. And this is also ways you can participate. And so if you could see now where we're going to go into who we appreciate and thank for the project, we are going to shout out Heather Fox and her team from the University of Louisville Oral History Project. Jamika, if you can go to the next slide, and we can actually come back to this if there's any questions. Or if Jamika, would you like to say more about this part?
Well, we do actually have someone, they shared the chat feature for some reason it's not working for them, but they said that they love their grandmother. After she passed, they got a tattoo honoring them.
Lovely. Thank you for sharing that and also giving us an update about that. Would you like to share any more, Jamika, about how to get involved this section?
Definitely share with folks that we want to get as many people involved with this process. Obviously, the Oral History Project itself, but again, our photo campaign, we want to be able to flood our newsletter and Instagram with all these grandmothers honoring them.
Awesome. So there's multiple ways you can participate within your capacity. If you feel like interviewing your loved one, if they're still living, for 2 hours is too much, but you want to find out a way to still be a part of it, here it is. You can share a photo like you saw earlier. You saw me with my grandmother. And so that's a way just to shine their light. We're going to go to the thanks and gratitude next. And we would like to thank Heather Fox and her team from the University of Louisville Oral History Project. We also shout out the university libraries staff, with a special shout out to Letitia Reynolds and Courtney Sharif, and Jason Zark. I hope I'm saying his last name correctly, and staff from the Digital Media Suite. We are happy to bring light to the conversations about students, their grandmothers, which will air this fall. We also would like to shout out the Cultural Center at the Cultural and Equity Center for providing support during the planning of the project. We would also like to shout out an event that is a part of the Cultural and Equity Center, which is Mesa de Abuelas from the Hispanic, Latinx, Indigenous Initiative. And that's another amazing event to celebrate that we want to uplift in this work. We welcome your support in this invaluable project as campus and community partners. And so feel free to reach out to us from our service account, Women's Center, at louisville.edu with questions you may have. And you can also give us a call at 502-852-8976 or the Women's Center's current website. And we will also give this space, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat about the project. But again, if you have any last words of wisdoms that come from your grandmother, feel free to share. So this is a moment for questions, for wisdom, for just a soft space just to land and celebrating these amazing people who are here or not here, who represent so much more. And so that's what this project is about, looking at the big, the small, the everything. And do we see anything in the chat? Jamaica, just check.
This is Letitia.
Yes, yes.
Hey, so I was just gonna say a few words about my grandmothers, my two grandmothers on my dad's side and my mother's side. And let's see, my grandmother on my mother's side, her name was Marita, and we called her Rita, and I'm named after her. My middle name is Marita. And she was my city grandma. So she called me her sidekick, and she just took me everywhere. Like, we would go swimming and to the state fair. She would actually get on the rides with me, the fast rides. So she was just a lot of fun. And she was interested in art, and she loved to cook. She had kind of strange taste buds, but because of that, I think I have strange taste buds. And, so I like really different foods. And she was really tough, but just so loving and supportive of me. And that just went a long way in my life. And same with my grandmother on my dad's side. And I call her my country grandma. And she was from Hillsboro, Alabama. And she was always, like, if anytime I talked to her, her discussions always turned into either her praising God or preaching. So either one of the two. But I just gained so much from her as well. Just, learning how to be thankful and just remembering how good, God has been to me and to all of us. but she was a commercial. She did commercial sewing and upholstery. She had 8 children that she raised pretty much on her own. Um, but both my grandmothers owned houses at a time when a lot of people didn't own houses. They worked very hard. And again, I just think in general, grandmothers, there's something you can't, replace about them. It's just the unconditional love that they give. And that's just so important. It was just so important in my life.
That was amazing. Thank you so much. And again, Letitia has been an important person in our planning, in her visionary planning, that we can, like, Letitia, what do you think about this idea? And she is right there. So we deeply want to shout out that appreciation to you, and also thank you for bringing your grandmother into this space. And we have a note in the chat from Courtney, who has also been a part of the planning. My middle name is also in honor of my grandmother, Kathleen. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly, because when I get nervous, all right, Kathleen. That is so beautiful. So the way even now, our grandmothers still impact our lives, even if they're not here. And so thank you so much for sharing from the chat.
I want to mention something too. This is Miss Phyllis. I'm a grandmother, which I wish I had mentioned earlier. I do have 2 grandsons, and my oldest grandson will be 26 next month. And I'm not trying to tell my age or anything, but yeah, I tried to give them the wisdom and things of things that's going on. My oldest one is a U of L student, and just trying to get them to be mindful of things that are going on around them, in terms of, even though we're talking about social justice again, there's a lot of things going on about that, and trying to get them to take note of things and be aware of things that are going on. And that voting is one thing. I encouraged them years ago. I said, make sure you register to vote and get out and be active in the community. So hopefully some of my words of wisdom they would take heed to. Yeah, my 2 grandsons.
So beautiful. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Miss Phyllis. And so this project, again, is something Miss Phyllis has been thinking about for many years. And to imagine, no, she did not know her grandmother, but still feeling the impact, the influence of her grandmother on her life, and then the influence that she knows that she has with her grandchildren. And so that continual journey in that role. And so we'll take a few more words of wisdom as we think about just how far this project can go in making connections to the role of grandmothers in our community on and off campus, as well as you capturing your own family history. And so sometimes when we think about leadership development, we don't think about family wellness, relationship building, all the things that are very, very important to all of us as we do leadership, whether we do it by ourselves or shared leadership with others. How important those relationships, those small and large interactions with our grandmothers, with people in our family, how that impacts our type of leadership. And so we have someone from the chat. We have Rhea Chandler. I have 1 grandson, Langston. That's a powerful name. Both of my grandmothers are deceased, but I have very fond memories. I want to make sure I create great memories with Langston. Oh, that touched my heart. And Langston, you are a lucky person. So thank you so much for sharing. That made me feel very emotional. So Oh, that's so sweet. So much here, and thank you so much, Ria, for for sharing that. And hopefully I said your name correctly. And just thank you, thank you, thank you. And we'll see. And look, and she's even wearing her grandmother's shirt or grandmother's shirt today for our meeting. So there's a lot of love. Oh, beautiful. So Miss Phyllis, would you like to say any last words as we wrap up this kickoff, and we will definitely share. We will love feedback because we can always get good, better, best. We really appreciate you all bearing with us as we have some technical difficulties. But hopefully you get the essence of this project where we will be partnering with the Digital Media Suite, U of L Libraries, Oral History Center.
I would like to ask,
Yes, yes.
if is it any students on the call? If so, I know one of my former students had signed up, but I'm just checking to see if there's
Yeah.
any students that might be on the call.
And that would be great. That would be definitely great to know. So definitely feel free to put it in the chat, as well as for students who see this video later. We definitely want to hear from you later. And just to participate, come on through, bring your unique perspective. We would love it. And again, we are very, very interested in evaluations from you, your honest feedback about how we can get good, better, best in our work as we reimagine leadership development linked to gender equity, as we look at the personal and the political at the same time, and as we honor our grandmothers. All right, Miss Phyllis, any words you have to say you want to share with us as we close?
No, I just want to say I appreciate everyone that's on the call, and hopefully we'll get some students and staff and faculty and community people to be involved in this project. So give us a call and we can make some arrangements to do interviews this summer, so we can just have them out this fall. So if you have any questions, just send me an email or email the team.
All
Thank
right,
you.
all right, all right. Woo, woo, woo. Yes, we did it. We can't wait to hear your stories. And thank you so much. Everyone have a beautiful, beautiful day. Bye.